Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today I'm going to be taking a first look, sort of, at a classic war game. I guess I can call it a war game? It's a game that has to do about war, so based on YouTube logic, that makes it a war game. The game, as you can see in front of you, is Super Battleship. It's from 1993. This was played on the SNES. I'll be honest, I don't know if it was available on any other platforms. I think maybe it was on Sega Genesis. I only ever played it on the SNES, and it was one of my all-time favorite games growing up, so I figured, you know what? Why not go ahead and share a little bit with it? This isn't going to be like a full playthrough. There actually are long playthroughs on YouTube if you want to see the whole campaign, but essentially this is a game that has two game modes. It has sort of the Super Battleship game mode, which is not your traditional Battleship, and then it has Classic Battleship mode, which is your traditional Battleship mode. So the Super Battleship mode is what we're going to look at, because I don't think anybody needs to see me play Battleship. But this is a game where you are given basically a host of different scenarios with sort of predefined ships that you have to try and accomplish your mission before the time runs out. So every mission has a certain number of turns. Every mission has like an objective, like take an island or generally sink, the enemy fleet or certain types of enemy ships. Or protect enough of your convoy ships or whatnot in order to win. Now, this is basically like a Sink the Bismarck type mission. This is the first mission in the game, and this is, don't pay attention to that. They take the island. Any side who bombards an island takes it over, but it doesn't actually matter for this. So basically, this is like a Sink the Bismarck type game or mission. It's the first of two missions, kind of in the first chapter of the game. And it is pretty easy, but you can see I'm going to go ahead here and bombard and take the island back. But basically you're given two ships, I believe a light cruiser and a battleship. The enemy has a battleship. It's the Excalibur, and our mission is to sink the enemy. I bombarded with my cruiser primarily because I wanted to get my battleship into action, and ships sort of maneuver at different speeds, and it would allow me to get the battleship closer to the threat if I just sort of halted the cruiser. So basically a unit can either move or can fight or fire in a given turn. This is a turn-based game. And so by bombarding the island, I'm taking it back from the enemy, but that doesn't really matter. What I am doing is getting my battleship to the van of my formation to make sure that I am able to, get the battleship into action, because I'd rather fight an enemy battleship with a battleship instead of a light cruiser. So you can see here we're moving forward. I'll move my light cruiser forward as well. The enemy just sank a merchant ship there. They kind of look like giant dump trucks with like a back to the dump truck. I don't know if there's like a number of ships that can't be sunk, but basically you do have to sink the enemy ship before time runs out. So you can essentially, you have different weapons available to you. You can see we're using our main guns. We've got a 75% chance of hitting the enemy, and now we are into combat. So this is what combat looks like. Very basic, but keep in mind this was on the SNES. The enemy ship will move sort of left to right across the screen. Typically, your objective is to sink them before they sink you in a given battle. Your ship has a certain amount of damage it can take. The enemy has a certain amount of damage it can take. And depending on where your shells land, you can destroy the enemy guns, the enemy engines, the enemy whatever, and likewise for them on you. So we took out their guns pretty quickly, and now they're just kind of a hulk that we're just bombarding until it sinks. This is the very first mission in the game, so it is very basic, but you can see here we've basically won. You can run out of ammo, in which case, the battle ends, and then, you can have things repair between battles, but again, pretty basic. It's an interesting game. I really enjoy it personally. It's actually one of those things where the scenarios get more complex. Now, interestingly enough, and I can't even imagine what you would do for 20 turns. I think they just don't want you to run out of time in this particular fight, because it is a very short battle. But after each mission, if you win, you kind of see your ship come into port with a little goofy victory blimp. And then if you lose, you get like a skull. You see your ship sink, and then you land on the ocean floor with a skull and crossbones, which you might see later in this video. But this is just a joy for me to play. Like, this is a lot of fun. What I will say is the game doesn't have a save game mode. It is old school in that sense. You have to use save codes, if you will, or codes that are given to you that allow you to progress to future missions. Although the first two, Excalibur and the Mosquito boat attack, they are both just they're always there. They're the first two missions. There's no code to unlock those. So we got through the first mission and we are now moving on to the Mosquito boat attack, which is the second mission in the game. This is kind of the polar opposite. In the first mission, you basically had a battleship and a light cruiser, which are some of the larger ships in the game. In the second mission here, you just have effectively patrol boats. So you can see here, you can actually go in and see, and this is true for every ship. You can see the class of ship. You can see the tonnage of the ship. The main weapon is 2 inches. The armor is 1 inch. Apparently there's a captain. I don't know if the captain matters at all. It gives you a breakout of like damage control and things like that. Different components on your ship can be damaged in combat. Your ship can take a certain amount of damage in combat. And so in this mission, you know, I didn't show it on the previous one, but the battleship would have had the same thing. You can switch between different types of weapons. So I didn't do that on the first mission because it was so basic, but you can switch between like different types of sensors. There's radar, there's sonar. Sonar is useful not just in detecting enemy submarines, which are absolutely a part of this game, but also in detecting mines, which are very deadly, especially for small ships. You can see when you move, you kind of move on like a grid that looks a little bit like a grid from a Battleship game. The more you move your sort of arrow cursor over to the right, the faster you go. Acceleration can take place over a couple of turns, so you might only be able to move your sort of speed up a certain number of hexes, and then the next turn you could move it up even further. Also, you might only be able to turn a certain amount based on how fast you are going. So essentially, the faster you are going, the lesser your radius of your turn. In this case, I'm basically just trying to go straight ahead toward the enemy and engage them. So I'm not too worried about like, oh no, I can't maneuver too well. You can see the goal of this mission is to sink the enemy fleet. There appear to be 2 patrol boats and a battleship, I believe. So we are heavily outnumbered by the enemy battleship. You can see here we are much closer than in the previous battle. And I'm trying to get some torpedoes out. So these are patrol boats, so they do have torpedoes. But the question is, can I take enough hits? And the answer is no. Before I sink. I don't know if my torpedoes will like effectively damage the enemy ship. I think once you sink, your weapons kind of die. I didn't hear any explosions there, so I got 4 torpedoes out, but I didn't live long enough. Patrol boats, I believe, can take 2 hits from a battleship before they sink. And I want to say patrol boats can take like 5 or 6 hits from other patrol boats before they sink. Now, interestingly enough, battleships are pretty easy to like de-gun depending on where you hit them on the hull. Patrol boats seem a little bit trickier. You want to aim either for the turret or kind of rear of the superstructure there. We took out the engines right away. You could see kind of the little like, I don't know what you call it, but it looks like it's hollowed out, or like, you know, the image of the ship is kind of like battered in. That indicates that section of the ship is damaged, and you can't like damage that section again. You can still inflict more damage in terms of sinking it, but in terms of disabling systems, you can't. And so I'm actually going to try and get in closer here with this battleship. By the way, you can ram ships too. So like my patrol boat could ram the battleship. Probably not to much effect, but this is going to be challenging. I've got torpedoes here. Let's see what we can do here. Maybe we can knock out the enemy guns. So like you can see, for the battleship to knock its guns out, you want to hit just behind this flag here. So I did take 1 hit, but it looks like I knocked its guns out. Now, obviously, this isn't a realistic model of armor. A 2-inch shell is not going to penetrate a battleship's main guns, but it's pretty. They're pretty. It might actually be a heavy cruiser, but either way, they're pretty simple to, you know, get the big ships to stop firing. The small ships, they have much smaller sort of hit boxes, if you will, so they can be more challenging. You can see here I'm using up a good chunk of my ammo here. You can see that yellow line represents how much ammo that we have left. The enemy ships, sort of, we hit that center spot on the ship, which is their engineering plant, so we destroyed that. We now have 4 torpedoes in the water to try and sink the enemy ship, because while our 2-inch shells are surprisingly able to destroy the enemy guns, they're not so good at actually sinking the enemy ship. And I think that I expended all my ammo on that target. So we put 4 torpedoes into it, and it ended because we expended all our ammo, and we had nothing left after putting the 4 torpedoes into it. So that's kind of a bit of a challenge in this one, is, you know, what are you going to do with such a big enemy ship? And it's a battle cruiser, not a battleship. When you have a very limited amount of ammo. So you can see we re-enter this battle, and the enemy ship is actually still damaged, so they are still unable to shoot back. Again, kind of silly that you hit behind the turret when they've probably got 3 turrets, but I digress. Let's go ahead and put more torpedoes into it. 4 torpedoes wasn't enough. We'll fire 3, see what happens. I would think 7 torpedoes would be enough to sink a battle cruiser. The interesting thing from an era's perspective, apparently not, from an era's perspective in this game is that, like, this is clearly sort of World War II inspired in terms of the ship design, but you also have missiles. So maybe it's like the 50s or 60s, maybe more 60s, but no aircraft really to speak of. So whatever. Anyway, 8 torpedoes was enough to sink this ship. So it does go down. And that's a pretty big result there. The enemy does have 2 patrol boats. And remember, one of our remaining 3, I believe, I think it's totally out of ammo. I don't think it has shells. So you can see here the enemy torpedo boat is kind of closed in on us. Actually, I think this mound right in front of the rudder of this ship is where might be where the guns are on the patrol boat. I think it is. It looks like the enemy ship has stopped firing. So we were able to disable it before they sank us. We have no more torpedoes on the ship. We do have some shells. So this must be one of the previous torpedo launchers that we engaged the battleship with. And now I'm just going to try and sink the enemy ship with my piddling little pop gun, my 2-inch gun. And from a shell perspective, I don't believe it matters where you hit. I believe it's just based on quantity of damage inflicted. But you can see there we sank it just with a couple shells to spare. And we will be about to move on to, I would think we should be able to take care of this bad guy. The enemy is shooting us. We've already damaged this enemy ship, but we only have like 2 shells left. 2 salvos left. Actually, it's 3. Looks like we got 1 more here. Oh, never mind. We sank it. Okay, so there you go. Another victory. I will say, growing up, this Mosquito battle always gave me a bit of a challenge. It was difficult because you could only take 2 hits from the enemy battleship before your ships would sink. So if you didn't get in quick and disable their guns, it could be a problem. And I don't think when I played this game back then, I was quite as observant to things like that. Like, I knew you could knock guns out, but I don't think I was maybe as, whatever. I played this game a lot in middle and high school, and maybe I wasn't as smart in the ways of games at the time. But, you know, it's a game. It's somewhat formulaic, but I always had a blast playing this thing. So what can I say? I wanted to share it with you guys. Now we are going to have the next 3 battles unlocked, and you can see it provides you the secret code for level 2 in the game. I believe there's 5 or 6 levels and like 15 scenarios or so. But that secret code C31D5 for level 2 works for everybody. It's not tied to any saves. This physical disc, or not disc, this physical cartridge does not actually have the ability to save games. So it must not have like a save battery, or it just wasn't a feature in the game. But you can see here the next 3 battles do open up in level 2. Battle for Quemoy Island, Convoy Escort, and KL-17. All right, so moving on, we are going to fight the Battle of Quemoy Island. I think this might be the first mission where you get missiles. So like as the game progresses, the complexity of the scenarios increases. You can see in this particular fight, we've got a battleship, the Achilles, an armored cruiser, the Carthage, another armored cruiser or heavy cruiser, the Africa, and then we've got 3 destroyers out front. Also, we just turned on the sonar, and you can see these little blinking circles, in fact, are mines. So if your ship collides with that circle, your ship sinks. I don't think you can survive a mine hit. Certainly, your destroyers cannot survive a mine hit. And so we are moving in here, and you can see the enemy fleet is sort of stacked back here. It looks like maybe 1 battleship, 2 heavies, and 4 or 5 destroyers, possibly. Could be a light cruiser, too. This one feels like a battle that's kind of loosely Guadalcanal-ish. But, you know, none of these are historical. It's just sort of flavor in terms of how the scenario is designed, I guess. But you can see the Achilles back here moving into position slowly. The cruisers also moving into position slowly. Some of these scenarios can also be more challenging too because of the way they're designed. A lot of them are designed to really push you on time. The first 2 didn't because it was basically they're not exactly tutorials. There is no tutorial, but they're kind of functioning as a tutorial. But I like to just kind of close in with the enemy, get as close as we can so we can get a good visual on what the enemy ship looks like so we can actually knock their guns out quickly and let the AI waste its turn firing at me. So this is our first look at a destroyer on destroyer fight. I believe the red flag there is what you want to hit to knock out its guns. You can see we took 2 hits there right away, but the enemy ship is no longer shooting back. So our destroyer took a fair bit of hull damage by those hits. Destroyers are going to have 5-inch guns, I believe. Interestingly enough, they seem to be harder to find where their engineering plant is. Like, you're hitting right in the middle of the ship, no damage to the engineering plant. One other thing also is, if you move your guns up or down, you can actually hit the superstructure versus the hull. Again, there's no complex flooding mechanics, so I don't think it makes a difference in terms of if it sinks, but it will influence what systems are damaged or perhaps knocked out. But you can see we sank the enemy ship, the Andes. So first enemy ship down by our lead sort of ships. Now we're going to go ahead and, I thought there were missiles, and I didn't mean to do that. I just fired my gun into nothingness and wasted my turn. I swear there were missiles in this particular scenario, but maybe not. There's nothing on that on that heavy cruiser. And I think what I was struggling with the controls at this time when I was recording was like, once you pick shoot, how do you back out of that? It's not, the controls are a little clunky on a SNES controller, but I wonder, I don't know if you can get this anywhere like abandonware wise or not, but you can see here on the damage control, Conqueror is the destroyer that was engaged previously, 5-inch guns, 1-inch armor, I believe and 14 hull strength. So that represents how much hull strength's left. Bow guns were damaged, which reduces your rate of fire. We still have our stern guns, but bow guns are damaged, which will mean if we do it in another fight, it takes longer to reload. We can repair that damage, however, and so that's what we're trying to do there with our damage control, is perhaps get those guns repaired before the next fight would ensue. So, enemy moving around, and we're about to go into another fight. It is the Conqueror, which was in the previous fight, and we took a hull hit. We did knock the enemy guns out there. We took another hit. That'll damage our rudder control, which will impact our ability to turn and steer, not on this particular fight, but the way that'll work is on the strategic map that we were, previously in. We won't be able to adjust our course, so we'll kind of be, or we will eventually jerry-rig something, but it'll be like, you can move in any one of 5 hexes, like directly left, directly right, or forward, or slow down, but you won't be able to like turn the ship per se. Like, you can slide left or right, but you can't turn. Is kind of what can happen with rudder damage. But hey, Conqueror's done its job. It has sunk 2 enemy ships so far, all by itself. Does King George have missiles? I swear one of these guys does, but I don't even know. Actually, that wasn't King George. That was K. George. That was the name of the captain. Arvan's the name of the captain of the Aguirre. You can see destroyers also have depth charges. Not all ships carry depth charges. That allows you to sink enemy subs. Don't think we've seen a sub here. I don't remember if there's one in this particular battle or not, but we're getting close to the missions where subs start appearing. All right, so hull strength for the Conqueror is down to 4. You can see the forward guns were repaired, but rudder control is now damaged, so Conqueror will not take much more damage. Maybe 1, maybe 2 more hits from 5-inch shells to sink her, and now we're trying to go against an enemy cruiser, so if it hits on its opening salvo, we're a goner. And we are. I was trying to get the guns up. You can see the cruiser outline looks similar to a battleship. But we did not get the guns up. So either way, Conqueror, you did your job. You got 2 enemy ships sunk. We're not outnumbered 2-1, so. All right, we got what? 2 more destroyers, 2 cruisers, and a battleship against us. Meanwhile, we have the same exact breakout of ships. So the enemy started with 1 more ship than us. Conqueror evened the odds, and that's where we're at now. Radar's damaged. That didn't really matter in this particular fight, I don't think. I think we're close enough with this destroyer that it won't matter. But we should sink this enemy destroyer, and then we will... Oh, we got the engines. You can see that center section just kind of went black, and that indicates that we hit the engines, which means we could switch over to torpedoes, but we've already battered them enough that I don't think it's required. You can see I'm kind of like moving around to hit the different parts of the ship, but down it goes, and that's the 3rd enemy destroyer sunk in this battle so far. Enemy turn. We're getting close to some mines up there. I haven't even got my heavier ships anywhere close to this fight. We'll try and get the Carthage in. We'll shift the other cruiser north because that's where the enemy cruiser was that sank our destroyer. And there you go. You do see each time you are on the strategic map and you try and initiate a battle, it'll tell you what the percentage chance of a hit is. Not only does that influence the likelihood of you being able to initiate the battle, for example, if you fire it and you don't get a good die roll, you can just entirely not, you know, you miss your shot and don't even start the battle. But it also will influence the enemy's accuracy when they're shooting at you. You could see at the start of this fight, it said the enemy's fire is at 57%, which I'm assuming means they hit you 50% of the time they're firing. It would be very hard to have that low of a hit percentage as a player. But not the most challenging game per se, but still. I know I've said this multiple times. I like this game. All right, Sullivan, get the Achilles moving. George, get the Carthage moving. Oh, one other thing. So you go into battle and you fight battles with your guns and your torpedoes. And, you know, it can take a while to sink the enemy ship. If you have missiles, it's a one-hit kill. Now, it's harder to hit them on the sort of strategic map with a missile. But just something worth noting. I guess there's no enemy subs here. All right. Excalibur's attacking my destroyer. There we go. Knocked its guns out in one shot. That's a little cheap, I will agree. But, you know, that's also, I've played this game for a good long while. I know where the hit boxes are mostly. The one thing I've always kind of struggled with is the Mosquito boats or the patrol boats, but we'll fire off all five. Well, maybe we'll do 4 torpedoes here. I think we've got more. I think we've got reloads because these are destroyers, not torpedo boats. So you're not just limited to the initial salvo. You can get reloads here, I think. Definitely looks like we can get reloads. You can see on the lower left, we still have torpedoes left on that yellow icon. So I think we will get more. I can't remember if this ship we're fighting is the cruiser or the battleship, but I'm going to guess if it doesn't go down with a 5th torpedo, it's the battleship. Yep, 3 more. But rather than waste the handful of torpedoes we have left, we can, you know, the enemy's already heavily weakened. We can try and finish it off with shell fire, perhaps. And we do. So we save 1 shell left in our battery, and there's no resupply in these battles. They're all short enough that, you know, there's no option to like return to port. Ships you can already see don't maneuver well enough to really do that anyway. Okay, so we've got the Africa moving up on the other enemy cruiser. See if we can just engage it here. Yep. So you can see the heavy cruiser of ours has a 2-inch or a 2 battery gun. So I think it's like 8-inch guns in a battery of 2. Meanwhile, the battleship has 3 triple turret. That has a triple turret. And then the destroyer has a single turret, and the Mosquito boats have a single turret. I really like submarine warfare in this game, so I don't know if we'll get to that in this video, but you kind of saw it on the main menu screen of how it works. Basically, you've got a submarine moving left to right across the screen. Your destroyer's moving right to left, depending on the speed that your ship is moving. That influences how quickly you move. And you've got to estimate the depth and drop your depth charge to line it up to hit the enemy sub and sink it. Pretty simple. It can be challenging, especially when you're booking it and moving it fast. And there's no ability to circle around. It's like one pass and you're done. So it's interesting, I think. Anyway, this has been a lot more of a turkey shoot than I thought it would be. Although you can see this destroyer is about to hit a mine, so we shifted it south a little bit so that it would avoid the mine. The lead ship, the Warrior here from the previous battle with the battleship, hull strength only 6, which I think versus a cruiser would be 1-hit kill. And its engines are out, and its radar is also out, I believe. So not in a good spot. Battleship's moving south. Or is that the cruiser? I think it was the cruiser. We could turn, but that would probably collide, or the rear of our ship would probably collide with the enemy, so we won't do that. We've repaired our rudder, at least. The radar is still being repaired. Yeah, actually, it was a cruiser that we put all those torpedoes into. Okay. That remaining ship is definitely a battleship. You can tell by the silhouette, which the silhouettes, that's kind of one homage to the classic Battleship in this game. The silhouettes of these ships definitely are based off the actual battleship little pieces you put in the board. I've got no room for my heavy cruiser there to maneuver. I've only got one shell left on this destroyer. I do have 3 torpedoes, but I'd have to hit the enemy artillery, knock it out in one shot, which is certainly possible, but can I do it before I get sunk? No. The answer to that is no. I don't even think I took the guns out with that shot. I think I missed the box. I think I needed to be a little bit further forward. Okay, so Warrior has sunk. Battleship turned toward me, so we were down 2 destroyers, but we still have 2 armored. We still have 2 heavy cruisers and a destroyer. Trying to get my destroyer down there, or my heavy cruiser down there. What I really should be doing is slowing this destroyer down, not speeding it up. Although I did pivot it to the north a little bit to gain a little bit of sort of sea room to maneuver my ship. And then just enough room to maneuver that armored cruiser without colliding. And everybody is sort of lining up. I should slow that destroyer down on the battleship. I mean, battleship has no chance. The AI has no chance at this point. Unless we were to just be dumb and run out of time. Which I guess that's always a threat, but. All right, we're slowing the destroyer down. Who's he going to attack? He'll attack someone. He'll attack the destroyer. So yeah, you can see the enemy guns still working. We just took the engines out with that shell. I didn't take the guns out. You can see there's sort of a radar mast. In this case, we just took the guns out now, so this big boy is harmless. Can't move. Can't shoot. We'll just hit it with torpedoes. No reason to even save torpedoes at this point. Like, there's no valor or value to returning to port with torpedoes. Every scenario is independent of the other. So we put 5 torpedoes, I think that was. Put 3 more in. Hopefully it finishes it off. Otherwise we may have to wait, but at least the enemy ship has largely been crippled. Any other ship can probably easily finish it off if we run out of ammo. It survived the torpedo hits. We'll raise the artillery up a bit, take out some of the superstructure. Maybe take out that radar mast. Again, I don't think flooding matters. I think there's just a hit point value for the hull once you expend it and it sinks. But battleships can be pretty tough, especially to smaller caliber guns in this. Not so much their turrets. Those things die real fast. Of course, if the turrets didn't die, this scenario would be horribly balanced, because there's no way that you would have the time or firepower to just get your big ships into this fight. All right, so we've got our cruiser. Will go in here, should be able to finish it off. You can see it is still not moving and also still not firing. Some of the damage looks like it got repaired, but not the turrets. And our armored cruiser also does have 4 torpedoes, so we'll fire those. This will be, what, 13 torpedoes into this battleship? If it doesn't sink yet, I don't know what else to say. But we've got 8-inch guns as well, so they do more hull damage. Oh, down she goes. There you go. Victory! Took us 13 out of a possible 15 turns. So with our ships and where they were in proximity to the enemy, it wasn't really a risk that we wouldn't sink it, but it was pretty tight on the turns. You'll lose if you run out of time. But there you go. That's a victory. I think we will do one more battle in today's video and see how it unfolds. But we're at about 30 minutes now, so let's show you one more. And I'm just gonna skip ahead here. So actually what we're gonna be fighting is the Battle of, I guess, Convoy Escort. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start the Convoy Escort mission. I don't really remember this one. We'll see. We'll see how this one goes. I know this is where things start to get challenging. All right, so jumping into this mission, one of the other challenges with this game, as you've kind of seen in the previous fights, is you don't have a great sort of field of view in terms of, you can't actually slide to left or right on this window for your ship. So one of the things you do have is this satellite mode, which you can kind of see. You've got those little white dots in the left side of the map, which I believe is indicating our fleet. This is textbook a super NES or like old school games in terms of like, what am I looking at? We've got 45 turns. We have to escort our merchant ships to Sand Point or sink the enemy fleet in those 45 turns. That is a lot of turns. I believe this is actually where we see our first submarines. You can see some minefields here. And then there's a Mosquito boat behind us. So we'll actually go ahead and sort of turn our ship here. But again, with the screen the way it is and the satellite the way it is kind of, with these kind of old games, you very much have the vibes of a play it and learn it and then and lose and then figure it out on your following playthroughs kind of a vibe. But you can see there we've got I think 2 merchant ships showed up on the screen there. There's 2 enemy patrol boats behind the convoy. I'm turning one of my destroyers. Actually, there's a destroyer escort, so it's a new class of ships, to try and engage them. I'm assuming they will. I mean, they're fast enough, so they should be able to catch the merchants. Is it really just? I swear we've got more than one merchant, but that's all I've seen so far. Moving my ships a little bit more slowly, just kind of allowing the merchant ship to catch up to me so that we can provide a little bit better cover in close, I think, than if we're further back. Keeping the sonar on because mines feel like kind of the biggest thing to avoid right now. Couldn't quite get in range of the enemy patrol boats. I guess it really is just the one merchant. I don't know why. I thought there were more. So if that ship sinks, we lose. Great. I guess I don't want to be too close in. Given all it takes is one hit and it'll sink. See that patrol boat is making a beeline in. Oh, there we go. You got a submarine. It's the beautiful graphic. You see that little log-like green flashing icon? That's a submarine contact. You see off to the left here, you can see that green flashing icon. You kind of see it's longer. Again, kind of like a log. That's what subs look like in this game. And they are a pain in the ass to deal with. Especially because they can fire on you well before you can fire on them. You have to close range with them and in order to get depth charges out. Meanwhile, they can hit you from a pretty good distance with torpedoes. Obviously, you've got a speed advantage, but we'll probably see a torpedo here in a turn or two. Meanwhile, that enemy patrol boat, I guess, decided it wanted to attack my destroyer escort, which I was having trouble, getting in. He got 2 hits on me, which is a little bit frustrating. Actually, that was 3 shell hits out. 4 shell hits out. I have not taken his gun out. Our bow guns are damaged, which means we have slower reload speeds. You can see it, so it's taken me so long to be able to shoot again. Actually, I don't know that I have any functional guns, so we'll go ahead and fire torpedoes. Hopefully, its shells don't sink me before they arrive. Torpedoes take a good long while. Now he hit my engines. Come on, get there. Boom. Yeah, we sank it. Thank God. Man, that thing battered me into oblivion. So that destroyer escort probably won't be much use the rest of the fight, but we did take out the enemy sort of Mosquito boat that might have been a threat. There's our first sign of a torpedo. Looks like it fired at extreme range and did not manage to get to my ship before before it died. Meanwhile, you can see hull strength 2. It can't take any more hits. All of our guns are damaged. Engines are damaged. Rudder's damaged. Sonar's damaged. This destroyer escort, not in good shape. Meanwhile, destroyers have a 5-inch gun. Destroyer escorts have a 3-inch gun. They're 500 tons instead of, what, 1,000-ish? Oh, man, I'm going to collide, aren't I? Oh, we're fucked. We got 2 ships on top of each other. I think we're going to probably lose this mission. Here comes torpedo. They also have wonky courses, by the way. You can see it like wobbled and then straightened out. A little bit weird. Hey, we have missiles. We got depth chargers. There's another sub out there too. You can see 2 now, one on the far left. Not close enough range to fire the torpedoes. I don't want to move because if I move, I'll ram into my own ship, which can happen and will happen. I believe I can take 2 torpedo hits before I sink. We'll go ahead and move this destroyer escort out of the way. Meanwhile, our one merchant's getting closer, just ever so slowly, creeping in on us. I don't think that merchant's gonna... Oh, right off the bow. Fire control. I gotta try and get closer to that sub. I'm not there yet. Again, that's the challenge. Like with this clunky as these ships maneuver, getting in close enough to be able to depth charge them is not easy. Especially when torpedoes do quite a bit of damage to the hull. It's not just the item that says it's damaged. It's, you know, the hull strength as well. Try and slow our destroyer escort here. It's kind of quickly sailing itself out of the fight. Meanwhile, the only real screen for our cargo ship right now is our heavy cruiser. All right, the AI retreated the Conqueror. I think they've given up the pursuit over there. Where's the enemy sub? Oh, there. It's just off our right. All right, so we're in close enough, I think, to depth charge now, if we survive. And you can see we're slowly repairing our ship. Ever so slowly. Destroyer escort here. Sonar was damaged by the enemy torpedo. Remember, hull strength 1, which means one more hit and it'll go down. So, again, I think we probably lost this fight, but we'll see. We'll see what it looks like. There's got to be more than 2 enemy ships there. There's got to be. Or subs. All right, we are like right on top of that sub. I think we are close enough to depth charge it. We are. So here's what I was talking about. You got to use their cursor to up or down the depth settings to put an estimate in. You only have like, I think we got like 10 depth charges for this cruise because it's a cruiser. Destroyers usually have about 20. I was just estimating where I thought it was. You can see the depth setting seems to be pretty on. It looks like speed-wise we nailed this one. Should sink it. Boom, right in line. It's a goner. You can see all the oil coming out there. So we got one of the 2 enemy subs that we saw. Hell yeah. Clearing a path for our merchant ship. Maybe we got a chance. I guess it depends if the enemy sub sinks me before I can, because there's another sub we know of. If I can get up to it, I'm gonna have to turn that cruiser too, which is a slow process. We might already be in torpedo range. I'm not sure. Remember, the mission lasts 45 turns. Yeah, it's way down here. It's kind of like, what direction can I turn quickly enough? I can go right and get further away, or I can, but also put my cruiser at risk, or I can kind of try and turn toward them, but lengthen how long I'm in range. All right, up and to the right. Destroyer also could be a target, possibly. Yeah, you can see the torpedo. Like, they can just reach out. Ugh, the Galvin is sunk. They can just reach out and touch you at a good long range. So the light cruiser Amazon was saved by the enemy targeting the destroyer escort instead. I don't know why I'm going after the other Mosquito boat. Like, I'm a good ways behind the cruiser, or behind the merchant ship, but I'm not gonna catch up. And I don't think the Mosquito boat is either. All right, so I've lined up with the sub. Now I gotta charge it. This is certainly a high fidelity sim. Let's see if I can do it before we get sunk. Oh, the torpedo's gonna hit. It didn't give me any damage marker. Like, it was hit. It weakened the hull, but it didn't say what was damaged. So let's sprint in here, see if we can get in depth charge range before they shoot at me again. Merchant's coming up here. And another torpedo hit, and the Amazon sunk. So we are toast. I don't know if subs have... I don't know if the AI has limited ammo or not. Tried to shoot at the enemy patrol boat, because what else are you going to do? And here we go, another fight. What do we have? Like one more hit worth of damage? Hit right off the stern of the ship. Didn't hurt its guns. Oh, we're going down. And also, that's our last warship. So it doesn't matter that the convoy ship is still afloat. We have lost the mission. You can see the little mission failed icon there on the bottom. And that's all she wrote for us today. The beauty of this being a game is I can do it over again and learn from my mistakes. Which I think what I would do is just not bother going for the rearmost Mosquito and just really sprint in with the heavy ships up front to try and clear a path from the enemy subs. But anyway, we'll see. And then we'll probably just have to wait for the ship to get in range of the port or whatnot. But you can see here my cruiser, 32 hull strength, 4 torpedoes, 24 depth charges. So actually a lot more depth charges than I thought. It's a light cruiser though, not a heavy, so that I guess matters. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this game. Like, I shared it mainly out of nostalgia. When I bought a capture card, I want to say like a year and a half ago, I was like, hey, let's hook up the SNES, which is in a media console under the TV and never gets used. Let's record some old-fashioned retro gaming. We could make it a segment in the channel. Never did that. I recorded like the first 11 missions of the campaign. There is a long play out there on YouTube if you want to see all the missions, so that's not really what I was trying to do. I don't think there's any commentary on that though. So I just figured, hey, share one of my favorite games, one of my all-time favorites. I know, you know, by a lot of senses, this is not a complex game. This is not a, you know, I don't know. This isn't like a high-fidelity sim, but it was a game I had a lot of fun with. I have a lot of nostalgia for, and I figured why not share it. But if you guys want to see more of it, I'm happy to share it. If you guys don't, well, I don't have to. We'll see how you guys... I've never really done much retro gaming on this channel, but if you're interested, let me know and you can get more. And so we're only intending to engage as one Mosquito, then we will try to turn that destroyer back and get back into the fight. Meanwhile, we are advancing our destroyer and destroyer escort toward the enemy submarine. Hopefully more intelligently. I'm not going to like angle the destroyer escort down and fully remove it from the fight while the cruiser goes in at it alone. And then you got this whole turn-in and rigmarole like we had last time to try and get back into the fight. We're going to try and keep these two ships in close enough proximity so that they can support each other. We are going to try and have this destroyer escort face this enemy patrol boat and then be able to turn around and speed back toward the other lead ships. So I did have to maneuver my destroyer escort a little bit to avoid a mine. And here we go with our first fight against this patrol boat. So drop that shell in right on top of where it looks like the enemy forward gun would be. But we're taking some damage just like last time. We did knock out its guns, though, effectively there. So I'll use a torpedo. I don't know that using a torpedo makes a ton of sense here because you only have so many shells. But I think my logic is, fuck you. And even otherwise, like maintaining shells' ability to be precise and where they hit has a lot of value over the torpedo because the torpedo takes so long to get there. You can take 3 or 4 shell hits before your torpedo ever arrives. And so sometimes it makes sense to use a torpedo on a target that in the real world would not warrant a torpedo being fired at it. But maneuvering the cruiser, I don't know why I keep calling them armored cruisers. They're heavy cruisers trying to get in on the enemy sub and then also pivoting the destroyer escort so that we avoid any collision there. And hopefully can quickly close in on this enemy sub. It hasn't fired at us yet, but remember, we can only take 2 hits with either of our ships. The destroyer escort sometimes, I think, sinks with just a single hit. And I guess I changed my mind. Let's go for the Mosquito because there's no way we're going to catch up. We didn't take as much damage on that first gun battle either, so I think we can pretty likely survive. Meanwhile, the enemy torpedo missed. I don't know what the odds are that you hit. I'm not really sure. I think that destroyer escort is close enough to depth charge. We'll find out in a moment. Might not be, though. You really got to be in a very particular spot. Where is it? I see the other sub. We might be too far away. It's a tricky, because if we do it in, just in range. All right, and it's shallow, so this should be an easy kill. The hard ones are when you are moving very fast, which we are not, and when the enemy is at great depth, because sometimes even just the control scheme of trying to get your depth setting deep enough to hit the sub before you go past it can be a major problem. In this case, it was shallow and we were moving slowly, easy depth charging, one enemy sub down, one more out here to the left that we've identified so far. There might be more, I'm not sure. And we haven't even taken a torpedo hit yet, so that is a big deal. Where is he? All right, out directly to the left, still at a reasonably large distance. I'm assuming the enemy torpedo boat will try and engage us this next turn. Meanwhile, we'll have our destroyer escort move. So we got two ships closing in on the enemy sub. I assume we're about to have another gun battle. We are against another patrol boat, very close range. All right, I think we got the forward gun. I think it was off the stern too much. All right, so we got him. No, he's still shooting. I swear I'm hitting him in the right spot, but whatever. We sank him. We took damage, but the other enemy ship is gone, so good for us. Now that destroyer escort is so far behind the merchant, it is not going to be able to catch back up. I think this enemy sub is all that's left. There are longer convoy missions later in the game where you've got like 2 or 3 rows of subs you got to get by, and multiple ships and other things like that come into play. Engines are out. All right, I guess just repair. Do what you can. Meanwhile, Vance is going to speed up and try and pivot down a bit. These two ships are going to be on top of each other again, but let's see, the enemy fired a torpedo. It hit. And the Glavi, great. It might be in depth charge range, but it has no sonar, so I'm assuming I can't actually, and this is what it looks like when you try and steer with no rudder there. You get like that 5 hex grid. It's like a makeshift rudder, basically. You can see we have 8 hull strength, so we could actually take 1 more shell hit, I think. Maybe 2, depending on the caliber. Not that there's anything out there to shoot at me right now, so doesn't matter that much. I wonder if you can shoot missiles at submarines in this game. I'm assuming not, but I don't think they're nuclear subs. It would be cool if the game allowed you to, yeah, we can do it. Oh, no. Okay, here's an example of the enemy sub being all the way at the bottom of the map. You can see we're trying to get those depth charges out early. No point in firing really any further depth charges because they won't get deep enough before the sub is off the edge of the map. I don't even know whether they got a timer on the bottom in blue there. You can't come back for another pass. But you can see those depth charges kind of dropping in. They might be a little shallow. Blow. No, I set them too deep and behind. The sub got away. Yeah, the real challenge is when they're moving quick and when they're at the deepest depth possible. Silly game mechanic, obviously not very realistic from how submarine warfare really works, but and then he fired a torpedo and sank the destroyer escort. So the Glavin had its chance and missed. The cruiser, well, we're set to radar right now. I don't think I realized that. There we go. All right, we're too far away. We're right on top of it now. We'll probably take one torpedo hit and then have one more chance at sinking the enemy. There you go. We took the hit. Engines are out, so we're not going anywhere. Might as well depth charge. Engines are not out on this screen. It's a little bit shallower, which is nice. You can see I'm kind of just tweaking the depth a little bit. Those look like they should be pretty good. Might be a little shallow. Right on the conning tower. So thank God for the conning tower. That second one would have hit it anyway. There you go. That should be another victory for us. So it is. There you go. 13 out of 45 missions. No more enemy ships left, so we win even though the convoy isn't there yet. And mission number 4, a success. With that being said, guys, we've been going for over 50 minutes of this old game. Let me know your thoughts below, as I already said earlier, and I think that'll do it for today. So hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, we're out.